What is going on, Jet fans? Matt O'Leary back with another video. In today's video, I want to take a look at some projections for the offensive lines around the league in 2024 and talk about where the New York Jets offensive line ranks as of right now. So just some context on this one. It's taking a look, the numbers are taking a look at pass protection, and that's something the Jets were really bad at last season. They were not a very good pass protecting team. They also had really bad quarterback play. So the mix of both of those things and a horrible offensive play caller resulted in a historically bad season for the offense. It wasn't just one of those things that was the main cause. It wasn't all the quarterback play. It wasn't all Nathaniel Hackett. And it wasn't all the offensive line. It was a combination. You need all those things to go really badly to have such a historically poor offense. But in 2024, the New York Jets are projected to have a top 10 offensive line, coming in at number 10. And in 2023, they had 13 different offensive linemen play, but this is taking a look at the projected starting five, and they rank 10th behind Detroit, Philadelphia, Indy, Baltimore, Carolina, Cleveland, Cincinnati, the Rams of Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Chargers, who come in number 9th. So what's the biggest reason for the improvement? It's very obviously the tackles. That is the best spot, and Tyron Smith provides the biggest improvement, as you can see by the numbers. And well, when you look at his pass protection over the last, really his entire career, but just looking at the last 6 seasons, he's allowed only 5 sacks in that span, which is just an absolutely insane number when you consider the number of sacks the Jets left tackles include Dwayne Brown in the mix, include Mekhi Becton in the mix, had last season. It was just an abysmal number. The unfortunate thing with Tyron Smith is something that I and many others have talked about a lot, is the number of games that he's played over the last 6 seasons. 13, 4, 11, 2, 13, and 13. So you are happy if Tyron Smith is giving you 13 games next year, which means he's probably best case scenario missing 4 games. And that's okay if you have a very good contingency plan. But that to me has to factor into where the Jets offensive line is going to end up next season. And then you have Morgan Moses, who again, right tackle fix, awesome. You trade a 2024 6th round pick. Yeah, it's 2024. Sorry. 2024 6th round pick. You move back a little bit in the 4th round and you land yourself a plus starting right tackle. He has never allowed more than 5 sacks in a season and in any of the years that he's started. And more often than not, he's someone through the course of his career has consistently played a ton of games. Last year, he played in 14 games, only missed 3 games, but he played through the entirety of the season with a torn pec. Now he's 33 years old. So he had the surgery this offseason. I am confident that he can make the recovery and come and play a majority of this season for the New York Jets. But again, not a guarantee that he is going to go out there, start all 17 games and start all 17 at a high level because of his age and because of he's coming off an injury. So that also factors into some of this. According to the numbers as well, the weakest links are Joe Tippmann and Elijah Vera-Tucker. And both of those guys are the only 2 who are returning from last season. And Joe Tippmann played the most of the 2. And unfortunately, I think both those guys suffered from a really bad unit as a whole, not necessarily the 2 guys in particular, because I think all Jet fans would agree that Joe Tippmann and Elijah Vera-Tucker are 2 of their better offensive linemen last season. They're really probably the only 2 that you were comfortable with, if we're being honest with ourselves. Tippmann allowed 3 sacks and 20 pressures in the short amount of time that we saw him, and Elijah Vera-Tucker 2 sacks and 14 pressures in the 5 games we saw him last season. Something else you unfortunately have to consider with both Elijah Vera-Tucker and Joe Tippmann: injuries. Common theme. AVT unfortunately has played 7 games and 5 games each of the last 2 seasons. Both freak injuries. I'm not crazy concerned that he's going to get hurt again in 2024, but it's something you have to have in the back of your mind. And Joe Tippmann was a little bit banged up in college, got banged up, missed a couple games this past season. So that's really 4 guys who could potentially have injury concerns on your offensive line. So while I am very happy at the job Joe Douglas has done so far this offseason to go to improve the offensive line for this year, again, as I said, on paper, they are projected to be a top 10 offensive line, but the games aren't played on paper. And unfortunately, as we know all too well, you're not getting 17 games from all 5 of your starters. That hasn't happened for the New York Jets since, I think it's 2012 or 2011. It's been over 10 years since the last time that's happened. Now, there's been years where most guys have played the majority of the season, and then you had like a Nick Mangold missed 2 games here or there, and that happens, and that's okay. But I think the Jets have to be prepared for, honestly, Tyron Smith is going to miss time, and they might have someone else miss time. So while they have a very, very good line on paper, again, a top 10 unit, do I anticipate them finishing top 10 in the league? I hope they do, but I'm not crazy confident in it. I think they'll be closer to middle of the pack, which is a big, big, big improvement. Huge improvement from where they were. They were literally one of the 2 worst offensive lines in football. It's like the Jets and Giants had the worst offensive lines in the league last year. And like I said, I think even if you have some of the guys miss time and you're only getting half a season from Tyron Smith or something like that, the depth should be a little bit better this year. And this is before the NFL draft as well, but they're just looking at, for the numbers on this one, the starting 5s for each one of these teams. The thing that you have to reiterate, though, is 1, the games aren't played on paper, and number 2, injuries tell you that it's not going to be only these 5 guys starting games and playing on the offensive line for the New York Jets in 2024. So the moral of the story is, yes, offensive line drastically improved. That is a big, big, big thing for the New York Jets, but they're not done yet. They aren't done. And that doesn't mean they have to take an offensive lineman in the first round. They don't. They don't have to take an offensive lineman in the first round. They can. It's something that's on the table, and something that I think, some fans still have to, wrap their head around, that idea of being a possibility. But it's a deep draft at the position. So, if they move back, get some more picks, whatever, you got to take a couple more swings on the offensive line, at least in this year's draft class, to continue to round out your depth, because they are going to be needed at some point this season. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Once again, I'm Matt O'Leary. I'll catch you next time.